U.S. sends billions of dollars of ammunition over to Ukraine. American weapons suppliers are reportedly overcharging the Pentagon and gouging us on almost everything. Why? Because there's too few contracting companies. Let's break down the numbers as we see it. First off, on Ukraine and the investment. We know we've given them $37 billion under President Biden. Then we found out we've given them $375 million. But yet they still don't have enough. Why? This number seems to be extremely high. Well, let's look back at how the cost of things changed over the years. Let's look at 2015 if we can. And as we switch gears, and in 2015, for example, you want to get a shoulder-fired missile. It is now 40% more than it was. They made hundreds of millions of dollars on 7 deals over 7 years. Now, these are contractors selling to the Pentagon. And what has happened? There's been a consolidation of major corporations. So therefore, there's no more competitiveness. There's not inspector generals for the most part. They've been gutted. And therefore, basically, the Pentagon has no choice but to say, how much is it? I will write you the check with our money. And a lot of times we're not getting this stuff. There's a new contract that got negotiated, gives us some hope. It's say $550 million. And lastly, before we get to Congressman Michael Waltz, look at a Stinger missile. In 1991, $25,000. Okay. Look at how much more it is now, $400,000, let alone the refills of the actual rockets. The government will pay TransDigm. This is a company that only has this unit, a small defense company that's getting bigger by the day. They'll pay them $119 million for parts that should cost $28 million. Why is that? Supply and demand. Hey, Pentagon, you got nowhere else to go? Therefore, we're going to gouge you, and you're not going to do anything. And the problem is, it's the Pentagon, not the Pentagon's money, it's our money, so they can actually just write the check and get over it. An Apache helicopter in 26, unable to fly because it's got needs this one little valve. This valve has gone up 40%. Why? Because the Apache helicopter only needs this valve, and only one company makes it, so they can gouge us. And they are, which I think is unpatriotic. I want to talk to Congressman Michael Waltz about this. He's been all over this for a while. He fights the wars and then makes sure they're done economically. He sits on the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, when I watched this on 60 Minutes, they studied for 6 months. I didn't know about this 1990s consolidation. They thought it would make us more efficient. Why didn't it?
Well, look, Brian, I mean, I think a lot of what you saw in that report is some of it is true. Some of it, I take issue with. But in the 1990s, we went from dozens of defense contracting companies to only about a dozen. And monopolies are never good. You have to have competition. You have to have market forces in there driving innovation and driving efficiency. And this Congress, led by Republicans in the House, are going to put measures in where the Pentagon has to award to small companies, to medium companies, the ones that are coming up with the new ideas and are young and hungry. The part I take issue with is when you look at the big increase in prices of weapons going to Ukraine, part of it is, Brian, those weapons were old. The production lines have been shut down years ago. The Pentagon had told these contractors to move on and create new, better, more modern things. And now we're saying, oh, wait a minute, go back and stand up those old production lines again. And it's expensive. So it's a mixed piece there. But I'll tell you what, these are the types of issues the leadership in this Pentagon needs to be focused on fixing right now, instead of making a carbon-free army, instead of focused on climate change or this obsession with diversity, when you have a military that actually over-represents minorities compared to the general population. These are big, complicated issues, and this is what we're telling Biden's secretaries. You got to be focused on helping us fix this instead of all of this other garbage they're obsessed with.
I would say something this. I'm naive, I guess. I would think if you're Raytheon or these major companies, you would have trouble sleeping at night if you're gouging our own country. You're making enough money. Yeah. Do you have to gouge and hold up extort the American public and the Pentagon? Because you're maximizing profit for your shareholders and you're getting yourself a nice Caribbean island. But in the big picture, you're hurting this country. We can't replenish our stocks. We can't get Taiwan what they've already paid for, yet we financed a war for 20 years, 2 wars at the same time, and never really ran short of stuff.
Yeah, Brian, so here's the other problem. We talked about the monopolies, and there's 2 other big problems. One is the Pentagon and the big contractors are often focused on buying the next, Ferrari, the next high-end stealth fighter, But then they don't focus on all of the spare parts and all the sustainment over time. And we got to have competition in that system. Look, the other one is there's no accountability. When we have ships and tanks that don't work, who gets fired? I mean, John McCain was famous for pointing this out. No generals get fired. No CEOs get fired. And we've got to introduce accountability into the system to hold these people accountable because our troops aren't getting what they need.
I would just think the military should welcome a massive audit that includes military people like yourself, whose objective is to streamline and see where there's duplicity of workforce.
That's why I'm here, Brian.
Major audit.
That's why I'm here.
You got it. Congressman,
yes,
thanks so much.
Is to get accountability for those troops. All right, thanks, man.
Especially on this Memorial Day, because if they don't have proper defense, we'll be unfortunately marking many people dying because of it. Congressman Michael Waltz, appreciate it.